Welcome back to Kitchener Today on City News 570. I'm Ian McLean, your guest host today. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. And I think we have on the line with us Mike Schreiner. And he, of course, is the Green Party of Ontario leader and the MPP for Guelph. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, Ian, it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the opportunity. I know how busy you are, and it seems to me I've been told a couple of times today that there's an election coming up, so you must be busy. So thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us.
I'll always have time for you, Ian. And yeah, I've heard there's an election coming up as well, and I can tell you my staff has me ramped up in terms of the things I'm doing every day. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. You've been on. We've had you on Business to Business several times, and always great to talk to you and the things that the Green Party of Ontario are putting forward. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. We'll get to the election in a minute, but one of the things that we caught my eye and we wanted to touch base on is the Green Party's launch of Ontario's first ever standalone mental health platform, and I think that's something that's really important as we come out of COVID. We've heard a lot about mental health challenges for everyone, whether it's workers, whether it's kids in schools, right across the board. Why don't you kind of walk us through this platform launch that you just announced last week?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ian. I mean, the bottom line is everything is not okay, especially when it comes to people's mental health. I mean, we were seeing significant wait lists, especially for youth mental health, prior to the pandemic. I mean, 28,000 young people on a waiting list, length of wait time up to 2.5 years. But that has gotten so much worse during the pandemic. And it's people of all ages. And I think it's, clear everything we've been through. And so what we're saying is mental health is health, and we should fund it and make sure that people are provided with accessible, affordable, comprehensive care. And that's why we're proposing expanding the number of services that are available through OHIP. So we actually start treating mental health like we do physical health, that we increase budgets for community-based mental health providers so we can reduce those wait times, and that we also work on preventing illness and really putting forward policies and proposals that promote mental well-being. And we know that will improve people's quality of life. It will improve economic productivity. It'll actually save government money in the long run. But most importantly, it will improve people's quality of life.
Well, I think that's important. And you see this all over, whether it's the calls for service that police get, and many of those calls are mental health related more than policing in nature. But when we look at this platform, I think the part that I gravitated towards and I wanted you to kind of maybe speak to is, what does the standalone part mean? I mean, is that what you're talking about as being a comprehensive plan that just doesn't talk about kids' mental health? It's overreaching, and how would that be implemented? Like, what are the elements of it?
Yeah, so the reason we did a standalone paper was so we could go into levels of depth to show people here are a whole suite of program services, changes to the way in which the mental health care system works right now, and to also be able to emphasize things like prevention and mental well-being. And, the bottom line is, first of all, we need to make the investments to make more services available through OHIP. And let's give you a quick example. So let's say you show up at the hospital with a broken arm, and, the doctor comes in and says, oh, hey, we can fix that arm for you, but it's going to take 60 to 90 days. Like, that would be completely unacceptable. It'd be ridiculous. And nobody would say that was okay. But that's what's happening for far too many people who are facing a mental health challenge. And so we're saying, let's make the investment so we can reduce these wait times. And then the next thing is when people are oftentimes, finally able to access mental health services or supports, they can't afford it. And so let's make it affordable, and let's make sure we provide the kind of comprehensive care people need. And so that's a big part of the plan is to make those investments and to be honest with people about how we're going to pay for it. And, we've just straight up said this is a $6.5 billion plan over the next 4 years. And most of the money comes from reversing the Premier's decision to eliminate the license stickers fees, which cost the province $1.1 billion a year. Let's invest that in something like a mental health strategy so people can access affordable, comprehensive care.
Yeah, and I think that leads to the next part of our conversation, the aforementioned a provincial election on June the 2nd. Everything for a period of time has been obviously and reasonably connected to COVID. And what we're very fortunate, and I want to thank you for taking time to agree to join us for the Greater KW Chamber's Provincial Leaders Series. I think it's March 21st, if I'm not mistaken. We look forward to having a fireside chat with you and drilling down on many of these issues. And I guess the theme which this mental health platform would tie into is our view of from the business community and from the broader community is, what's the plan for Ontario for opening and staying open into the future as we start to come out of the COVID period, around things like the investments in healthcare and education, hospitals, energy policy, the environment, housing, just to name a few. So maybe take a few minutes to kind of paint the picture for us of what people will hear from the Green Party as we start to think about the June 2nd election.
Yeah, no, from our perspective, I mean, the issue I'm hearing from folks over and over again is affordability, and especially housing affordability. And that's why, I was really proud. We released a housing affordability strategy last June that some media outlets have called a masterclass plan. And what I think is innovative about the plan is it's driven by what's the evidence, what's the best practices, and not by ideology or politics. And so we've put forward plans to both work with the private sector to expand housing supply within our existing built environment, and we've put forward plans to have the province re-engage in putting some money on the table for particularly more deeply affordable housing, because we think we need all three levels of government at the table. We need the public and private sector. We need to be working with nonprofit, co-op, and social housing providers so we can provide a continuum of affordability for seniors who want to downsize, young families who want to upsize, first-time home buyers, people who are looking to get into the rental market, and addressing the issues around chronic homelessness that we're facing. There's a lot of studies out there. For every $10 invested in things like permanent supportive housing to address homelessness, saves government $22 in healthcare costs, social service costs, criminal justice and policing costs. To me, those are the kinds of investments we need to be making to, improve people's quality of life and ultimately save money. Of course, we're going to be really pushing, shoring up our healthcare system, both by increasing hospital capacity, but also by addressing things like, what some people have called the shadow pandemic, which is the mental health and addictions crisis that we're facing in the province. And then finally, we have to get our economy kickstarted by investing in the new climate economy, which will enable us to, one, address the climate and ecological crisis that we're all facing, and we're experiencing the increasing cost of that with flooding and forest fires and other extreme weather events, but doing it in a way that positions Ontario as a global leader in the emerging markets in the new climate economy, whether that's mining to manufacturing strategy for electric vehicles, working on battery storage and renewables, working with our agricultural community with bioproducts and biomaterials. I think Ontario can be a global leader in that economy and do it in ways that can help people save money. My gosh, it cost me, $5 to fill up my electric vehicle plugged in at home overnight, while other people are, having to spend over $100 to put gas in their car. Let's make electric vehicles made in Ontario affordable for people so we can reduce these commuting costs that folks are facing right now.
And that's an important element that we can't lose, is that we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We've been dealing with COVID. We have to be making those investments that you talk about. for economic reasons and for to create jobs and the climate for the jobs and the prosperity that we need to pay for the services that people need. Listen, I should have probably started with this off the bat. It's because you're familiar to me and I know your story. But maybe tell us about what should people know about Mike Schreiner? Like, tell us about your background. I think it's pretty interesting, and you will take the election campaign to introduce not only yourself and the platform, but people will want to know who you are and sort of take a measure of you as leader of the party. What should people know about you?
Well, first of all, Ian, I'm a husband and a proud father of two strong, smart young women. And I grew up on a farm, believe it or not, in rural western Kansas. So I moved to Ontario in the mid-1990s for love and just fell in love with this province. And started a couple businesses in Guelph and have been an entrepreneur. I've also started some nonprofit organizations, all in the food space. So, you can't take the farmer out of me. And I've been a big proponent of supporting local food and farmers, both as a business person and as a nonprofit leader, and now going into politics. And, I really decided to get involved in politics because, one, I want to improve my community and improve life for people here in Ontario. And I chose the Green Party primarily because I felt like none of the other parties were addressing the climate crisis that's barreling down on us. I'm deeply concerned about rising levels of inequality, and I'm always looking for ways to improve our democracy. And that's what really attracted me to the Green Party, and especially its policies around how we can address the climate crisis while at the same time improving our economy and supporting entrepreneurs in the new climate economy. And the sort of entrepreneur business person in me really is attracted to putting forward a vision of what economic prosperity looks like in the 21st century and doing it in a way that helps us crush climate pollution and really leave a livable future for my kids and everyone else's kids.
Yeah, and these are big, weighty issues that really deserve to be fully explored in the election campaign because there are big issues in front of us. COVID-1 coming out of that, supporting the economy, but things as you talked about, which are it impact all of us, affordability, and certainly in housing, and the importance of the things you've talked about, energy pricing and the environment. So it's helpful to kind of get a measure of your background. I think one of the things that distinguishes us from other jurisdictions as we elect a premier, we actually elect a premier, but we have 103. Is it 103 ridings now? Anyways, there's over 100 ridings.
Now, Ian. 124 in Ontario now. Yeah,
I'm dating myself. 124 individual elections across the province. Talk maybe a little bit in the last few minutes we have before we go to break about your team, and because you can't do it by yourself. I mean, you're an impressive person and articulate. Talk about your team.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the team we're putting together. We will be running candidates in all 124 elections, and we have a number of, I think, just fantastic candidates. Just, in this region, Carla Johnson in Cambridge, who is very highly respected teacher, run the Poppy campaign there. David Weber in Kitchener, South Hespeler, who is a retired police officer and just a strong advocate for improving democracy in our communities. We're going to be announcing our candidates in all the Waterloo region ridings in the next few weeks. We have Diane Sachs, who's one of the top 10 international environment lawyers, who was the Environment Commissioner of Ontario. We have Matt Richter up in Parry Sound, Muskoka, who got over 20% of the vote in the last election, and I think is poised to have a breakthrough there. A number of small business owners. I think we're really a party that attracts a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals across a variety of professions. And I'm excited about our team, and I'm excited about putting forward our vision about how we can emerge from this pandemic with a greener and more caring Ontario, and one that really is skating to where the puck is going in terms of the emerging markets that are happening in the global economy.
Listen, that's important for everyone to understand as they look at at the election is there's leaders and there's teams, and it's the teams that deliver the change that or the policies that people want. So that's very important for people to know. Let's stick around with us. We're gonna take a few more minutes of your time. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back with more with Mike Schreiner. He is the Green Party of Ontario leader and the MPP for Guelph. This is Kitchener Today on City News 570. Welcome back to Kitchener Today on City News 570. I'm Ian McLean, your guest host. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce and erstwhile co-host of Business to Business on 570 News, which is Sunday at noon. To do a shameless plug for our program. We're back on the line with Mike Schreiner. He, of course, is the MPP for Guelph, and as importantly, the Green Party of Ontario leader. Thanks for joining us again, Mike.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
Listen, and I before the break, we talked about the election. We talked about your background and the team and the issues that are more, I would say, more Ontario focused. I wanted to take a minute as we look at how integrated we are globally, and you see what's happening in Ukraine and it just the tragedy, the human tragedy there, but it also has an economic and a climate impact. When we look at oil and gas and the importance of those still now to the global economy and what happens with global supply chains, and so I wanted to kind of get your sense of what's the path between, and you talked about the green future and the economy of the future. I think what some people struggle with, and I must admit I'm one of them, and you do a pretty good job of explaining this. I wanted you to take the last few minutes we have to kind of paint the picture of the crisis is now, but what's the path between now and that future you're talking about, and how should individuals and businesses be starting to look at that in terms of their own activities?
Yeah, Ian. Well, first of all, I don't want to talk about this without just saying, my heart bleeds for the people in Ukraine and just the horrific images that are coming out of Ukraine. But I also got to say I'm totally inspired by just the bravery and courage and fighting spirit of the Ukrainian people. And President Zelensky, of course, has just been, his selfie videos and things, I think, has been moving all of us. But I think one of the things that's going to come out of the conflict is an acceleration of the transition away from fossil fuels. I mean, you're already talking about the EU saying, hey, we've got to break our dependency on Russian oil and gas. And I think there's a huge opportunity, especially for jurisdictions like Ontario, to supply them with green hydrogen. We have a number of cutting-edge green hydrogen companies here based in Ontario that, we can develop a market for green hydrogen and supply the EU as they accelerate the transition. I think we're already seeing a major transition to electrified transportation. I mean, I think you're a football fan like me, and if you watch the Super Bowl, all the car commercials were for electric vehicles. That's where things are going. Again, Ontario is incredibly well positioned to have a mining to manufacturing strategy for electrified transportation and to create the batteries for energy storage to really make renewables low cost and more reliable. And the other thing for Ontario is we ship about $25 billion out of our economy to purchase energy from other jurisdictions. I would like to keep that money in Ontario, creating Ontario jobs, generating Ontario wealth. And we can do that through our farm and forestry sectors with bioproducts and biofuels, biomaterials. We can do it through the huge opportunities we have with our clean electricity grid, generating, that electricity for electrified transportation and the manufacturing that comes with it. I mean, the electrification of our steel arc furnaces now means we're going to be a global leader in clean steel. I mean, there's so many opportunities in this transition to the new climate economy for the province of Ontario. We just have to have the political will to get us there, and a government that wants to make those investments because they see the need to, one, crush climate pollution so we have a livable future, but two, make sure we take advantage of these emerging opportunities, especially in the new clean economy.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And this is something that I think people will during the campaign that are going to want to hear that the what's between now and then needs to come sooner than rather than later. So really important conversation. Listen, thank you, Mike. You're always generous with your time. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. We hope you're staying safe on the snowy day. But thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. And tell all your listeners, be safe on the roads, man. It's been snowing here in Guelph all day.